CIA Director John Ratcliffe visited Moscow on August 25th. The circumstances surrounding that visit, nobody knows. It could be something as simple as prisoner exchange, all the way to high level top secret military information. Could the U.S. be asking Russia to maybe bend on some things and try to get a peace agreement with Ukraine? I know that Trump's relationship with Putin. It seems like they've gotten along times that they've met up. Um, at least no one came to blows during the visit, so the general American public are seem to think that the visit went well. So maybe the U.S. is trying to get some sort of peace agreement going with Russia and Ukraine, because of course we're all hoping to see the end of this war. Ukraine's been attacking Wildberries, Ozon, which is online retailer warehouses. They've been accusing them of using them for military purposes. Ukraine's been hitting Russian oil refineries. Recently, Russia accused them of hitting a bus in Moscow, and there were some casualties. Russia's been real careless with the glide bombs and with the drones. A lot of civilians in Ukraine have been killed within July and August. In fact, the most casualties they've seen since the beginning of the war has happened July through August in Ukraine as well as Russia, the most civilian casualties. Sadly to report. But I did take a couple notes, guys. So yeah, Ozon, wild berries continue to get attacked because Ukraine accuses them of being dual purpose, used for military purposes as well. So they've been the target of a lot of drone strikes. They've been hitting, like I said, oil refineries in the Kostovo region and the Rostov region. They've been hitting missile and rocket fuel warehouses. I think that's actually kind of cool. Of course, all these ballistic missiles rely on rocket, jet fuel, missile fuel. So Ukraine's trying to slow that chain down by hitting these missile and rocket fuel in the Rostov region. Um, Meanwhile, the combat engagement, Ukraine's generals are reporting about 170 combat engagements per month. Ukraine's been hitting supply hubs, repair bases, radar facilities. Drone training sites have been attacked. Russia's been shelling. They've been using, like I said, glide bombs. They've been using loitering drones. Drones in general. They attack. Russia attacks by sea. Russia attacks by air and land. But their land attacks, combat wise, haven't really gone too well because Ukraine has such awesome drone technology. I mean, you send 2, 3 Russian soldiers into a trench, they're getting targeted by 5 or 6 killer drones. How can you run in a field when you're being attacked by 6 or 7 killer drones? You pretty much have no chance at that point because they're dropping grenades on you. They're literally targeting you with FPV drones. It really doesn't leave you much choice. And then Russia's been using loitering drones, which basically stay in the air until they decide to attack something. Um, you know, Basically, recently Russia had an attack on a civilian vehicle in Ukraine that ended up killing 2 young people. Um, Russia's been attacking Ukraine gas and oil sites, in retaliation because Ukraine's been doing it to them as well. Russia's been hitting business areas. Russia's been hitting things like malls, entertainment places, probably like movie theaters, places like that. But they've been hitting residential areas, like apartment buildings have been hit. I don't know if they've been specifically targeted by Russia, but it was kind of the casualty of war where those missiles just fell at the wrong place. Um, in Kopiansk, Ukraine is really having to hit the combat engagements hard because right now all those extra Russian units are flooding the area, trying to get the last of the Ukraine soldiers out of those areas, trying to gain some ground. But like I said, with the killer drones, it makes it almost impossible. Meanwhile, you have Ukraine lacking the Patriot missile system. Russia's been using ballistic and cruise missiles, and because Ukraine is lacking the Patriot missile system, they can't really shoot those missiles down. Ukraine's actually requested 360 Patriot missile systems. Countries like Germany, the Netherlands they actually produce these Patriot missile systems, so they could sell Ukraine these systems. Because Russia can build 100 ballistic missiles a month. That is pretty impressive. 100 ballistic missiles a month. You heard that right. Russia can, manufacture that. Um, all these countries are jumping in. Places like Germany, France, the UK. The UK, and I believe France just started selling the plans for the Storm Shadow missile. That way, Ukraine can start building their own Storm Shadow missile. But that's been one of Russia's red lines as well. Russia said if you start using long range weapons against us, it's going to escalate the war. And I think that's why you're starting to see an increase in civilian casualties in Ukraine, because Russia's really starting to become more angry because they're being hit with long range weapons. Ukraine's hitting aircraft facilities successfully, like they hit some bombers last month. Some Russian bombers were hit with long range weapons, like the Storm Shadow. But Ukraine's going to be starting to do their own Storm Shadow. They're going to start to try to see if they can build their own Patriot missile system. They're getting plans from other countries so they can start building Patriot missile systems inside Ukraine. Because Russia can probably destroy these units pretty quickly. That's why Ukraine has recently requested more than 300 units, because they're probably losing them so quickly. I mean, these are large, large, large units that shoot these missiles down. Some countries have pledged money. Some countries have just pledged the interceptors. Um, but of course, I think as a world, I think we should all focus on the situation that leads to peace, rather than just supplying weapons, 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 weapons. Maybe we should start supplying more ideas of how to bring this war to an end. I hope you guys have a fabulous night. Thank you for tuning in. Hug a loved one tonight. We never know when our last day is going to be. That's why we got to remain thankful and grateful every day as well. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight's episode of Faithrizing News. Stay safe out there. Till next time.